Hello and welcome to BYJU'S IAS. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article of discussion is about Mula River. This is a river in Pune in the state of Maharashtra. As this particular river flows downstream, it merges with the Pavna River on the left bank and the Muta River on the right bank, and as it merges it forms the Mula River, and this river eventually goes on to join another river called as the Bhima River. So this river is a tributary of the Bhima River in the Deccan, India, and thus it is also a distributary of the Godavari. Now that we have understood these important facts, there are some concerns that have been voiced in this article. What are these concerns? Untreated domestic sewage, industrial waste is being released into this river, which has resulted in the formation of foam as well as the river hyacinth. What are these hyacinths? These are nothing but the plants that you see in this picture. So as these plants grow as dense mat on the surface of water, they become a major weed problem. So what is the negative impact of these water hyacinth? They cause enormous water loss due to the evapotranspiration, creating negative impact on the water balance in this region. Because there is major evaporation as well as transpiration happening, the balance in the system is impacted. Then the same water, as it flows downstream, is also used by the farmers. These farmers use it for growing of vegetables, but as we discussed initially, there is untreated sewage water and industrial waste that is dumped into this river. So when this polluted water is used by farmers for growing the vegetables, this will result in certain health impacts on the individuals. This river was also once upon a time a fertile ground for fishing community. The fishing community once used to have a major catch, but eventually now this committee is suffering to meet its livelihood demands. So fishing, which was once a major economical activity in this region, has also suffered because of the growth of the hyacinths. With all these issues surfacing, majority of the environmental experts have also written to the municipalities as well as the state governments to kindly look into these issues. If this river is not rejuvenated, we will have issues in the future with respect to the drinking water, with respect to the irrigation, with respect to the fishing activity that we see in this river. This article is important from the cultural aspect. What is it speaking about? It is speaking about the Thrissur Pooram. Let's look into some of the facts which can be likely asked in your preliminary examination. This is an annual festival that is held in the state of Kerala. It is held at Vadakunathan temple in Thrissur every year. So the Vadakunathan here is Lord Shiva. So this is a temple that is dedicated to Lord Shiva. This was the brainchild of Raja Ramavarma, who is famously known as Saktan Tampuran, the Maharaja of the Cochin. It is because of this particular directive that this region is conducting this festival every year. The Puram signifies the meeting of deities of 10 temples in this region. The festival is synonymous with elephants. As you see in this picture, there are large number of elephants in this particular festival, and that's the beauty of this festival. Then there are two other important words that you will have to remember. One, it is called as Kudamattam. What is Kudamattam? Kudamattam basically means these umbrellas. So when you have the changing of umbrellas that takes place, such thing is called as the Kudamattam, which is one of the cultural significance of this festival. Then there is Ilanjithira Melam. This is nothing but an assembly of percussion artists who perform in this temple during the Thrissur Pooram. These are some of the important facts that we will have to know. But what is the significance? This particular place is known for its cultural importance. This has been on the tourist map of India. During this festival, large number of people visit this place. As a result, the tourism as an industry expands. There are people who generate employment, and more economy will have a boon in this particular region. We also know that India is a land of religion and diversities. But what is so important about this festival is, in spite of it being a Hindu festival, irrespective of the race, caste, religion, and all different cultural groups come up together and enjoy this cultural manifestation, which means that this festival is espousing the unity of India. This is what we need to know with respect to this article. This article says redactive pricing audit and the CAG's duties. As the headline says, this article is explaining about the functions of the Comptroller and Auditor General. Let's try and understand what this article is in great detail. In a democracy, what mandates is the will of the people. The people elect their representatives, then these representatives hold power and positions of responsibility, and ultimately these representatives are answerable for all the action that they pass on through. The democratic state also enters into what is called as the social contract. So what is this social contract? The social contract here stands for an obligation or a contract between the people as well as the state. So the state here has certain obligations or certain demands that it has to meet with respect to people. So it is representing the will of the people or the functions on behalf of the people. To ensure this social contract that we currently have, what we have is a number of institutions within the democracy. So what are these institutions? What we have is the judiciary. What we have is the vigilance committees, and another important organization is an independent supreme audit institution. So what is the supreme audit institution? The supreme audit institution under the Indian polity is the Comptroller and Auditor General. Then you also have the Indian Audit and Accounts Department functioning under the CAG, which constitutes the Supreme Audit Institution, which means these are the institutions which act as an instrument of ensuring accountability. Now let us look into the constitutional provisions with respect to the CAG. The constitutional provisions relating to the CAG are mentioned in article which surfaces from article 148 to article 151. So article 148 of the Indian Constitution deals with the appointment of the CAG by the President, and this also provides safeguards to his position as well as service conditions by stating that he can be only removed from his office in a manner and on the grounds as stated for the judge of the Supreme Court. So what it means is that he is provided independence and he cannot be removed on the whims and fancies of the legislature as well as the executive. His salary and other conditions of service are also determined by the Parliament, and this shall also be protected. And what is also of importance is, because he has to ensure that there is transparency and accountability in the system, he shall not be eligible for any further office either under the government of India or under the government of any state after he has ceased to hold his office, so that he does not have any partiality with respect to a particular government and so on. So these are the functions as present under article 148. Now let's look into the functions of the CAG in the Indian governance model. In the Indian governance model, you have the policies as well as the programs that are translated into the outcomes. So the government comes up with the programs and schemes, and these schemes will have to be implemented by the ministries as well as the departments. And how do the government get the money? And that is through the sanction that has been given by the Parliament. So accordingly, the Parliament sanctions the budget, which prescribes how the government will have to collect the money through the taxation and how much of it can be spent on a particular program or a scheme, and how it shall also spend this particular money. So there are prescribed rules and regulations as laid by the Parliament for a particular program as well as the scheme. So the government will be taxing the people, and the money will be going up to the Consolidated Fund of India, and any money that can be drawn from this Consolidated Fund of India will require sanctioning or permission from the Parliament. So the Parliament will have to sanction this, so it is keeping the executive accountable. So once it is sanctioned by the Parliament, there are these departments as well as ministries. These ministries and departments will have to follow certain financial rules when they receive or spend public money. So the spending departments are accountable to the Parliament for both the quantity as well as the quality of the expenditure. So article 148 to article 151 of the Indian Constitution prescribes a unique role for the Comptroller and the Auditor General of India in assisting the Parliament to enforce the accountability for the government departments. The Parliament is giving money to the ministry and department, and this money, whether it is done in a right way or not, who is looking into it? It is the CAG which is looking into it, and it will support the legislature by providing all reports to ensure transparency and accountability, and also the financial rules as laid by the legislature to keep the executive under check. Apart from the constitution rules, the CAG is also mandated by the CAG Act of 1971. This CAG Act of 1971 has amendments in the year 1976, 1984, 1987, as well as in the year 1994, where according to this particular act, the CAG will have all the duties and powers to look into the accounts, receipts, as well as expenditure for three tiers of the government, whether it is the central government, whether it is the state government, and even the urban and the rural local bodies. So according to the powers mandated under the CAG Act of 1971, they would be able to see whether the government is implementing the scheme according to the financial rules established in three tiers. So the CAG duties here include auditing of all the public companies, whether it is the central government, state government, or whatever it is, the autonomous bodies, the regulatory bodies, as well as other public entities. Therefore, the CAG here acts as a financial watchdog and exercises oversight functions over the receipts as well as the expenditure to and from the public accounts of India. So the main objective of the CAG report is to truthfully report to the legislature to help it exercise effective parliamentary oversight and control over the executive's accountability and use of resources as per the laws and rules laid by the land. So what is it doing? It is checking all these important documents and coming up with a report, and this report will be given up to the legislature, and it is this legislature which will question the executive about the role and its outcome with respect to a policy as well as a program. Now let's look into some of the examples. The CAG reports have usually since independence exposed various genres of political, financial, bureaucratic and corporate scandals. Let's take some of the examples. It ranges from the fodder scam, from the allocation of the 2G spectrum. It ranges from the coal blocks as well as the Commonwealth scam as well. So it is able to come out and bring up all these scams into public limelight. That is because the CAG has been given the independence and it is the responsibility. Why? Because it is the financial watchdog of India. So the CAG plays a vital role to deter, detect and also take remedial and preventive action. So it helps prevent the public sector corruption as well as espouse good governance. On one side, by throwing all these important scams into the public forum, it is preventing the corruption, and at the same time it is making sure it is encouraging good governance in the Indian administration. So the reports also become credible, authenticate and reliable source of information for multiple institutes. So the CBI or the Central Vigilance Commission or the Chief Information Commissioner can also look into these reports that have been given by the CAG. Why? Because these reports are filled with information. It is looking into how effectively the government is making use of the money that has been given by the legislature. So this report is full of information. So all this information can be used by the CBI, the Central Information Commissioner, as well as other enforcement directorates and vigilant groups as well. So this is the major function of the CAG. But what this article currently goes about speaking is, it speaks about one of the concept called as redaction. So what is this redaction? So as we initially discussed, the CAG will have to ideally make sure whether the government is doing a particular program or a function in an effective way. It looks at the economy and the scale of it. It looks whether the executive is working according to financial rules laid by the legislature. So it has to make sure all these minute details are collected, worked about and presented to the legislature. But what if there are certain information which is withdrawn from this report? What if there are key important critical information which is not added into this particular report? Such a thing is what is called as redaction. So what is redaction here? It is a selection or adoption by obscuring or removing certain sensitive information from the document of the CAG. But why are we discussing this? The reason is because of Rafael. So according to the ministry, there were certain sensitive details. These sensitive details can be a security threat. So one of the ministries has come up and has also advised CAG to not publish these minute details. So the point here is all those full commercial details were withheld and the figures on the procurement deal was completely blackened, and this was delivered to the legislature. Ideally, every information should have been delivered to the legislature so that the legislature is keeping the executive accountable, but there were certain things which was removed. Why? Because the ministry came up to the CAG and has asked for withdrawing certain information. Why? Because of security constraints. Is it the right thing to do? No. Why? Because the CAG is supposed to provide all details to the legislature, and it is the legislature who will keep the executive accountable. Whether it is the decision, whether it is a model, whether it is an economic decision taken by the executive is right or wrong is decided by the legislature. By withdrawing this information, what the CAG has done is it has not made sure that it is meeting up its constitutional mandate as espoused in the constitution. So what are the various concerns that this article goes about speaking? There are supreme audit institutions world over. We have the CAG, so do the institutes world over. There are majority of the countries which have their own institutions. But what is important in this article that it is speaking is that redactive pricing is nowhere used in any of the reports world over. So what the CAG has done here is it has withdrawn certain information. This type of withdrawing information based on the words of the executive is not seen anywhere in the world, and that's the major concern that this article is speaking about. The fourth pillar of the democracy is the media. The media is the one which showcases what is happening with the government. It is the voice of the people as well. But when this CAG is not able to report it to the legislature will not have debates in the parliament. As a result, because the legislature is not able to keep the government under check, the media will have no information about it, and ultimately it means that media is not showcasing what is happening within the parliament, which is the temple of democracy, and ultimately it means the corruption increases and accountability suffers. The CAG also has a major function of pinpointing at the accuracies. In case there is non-compliance with respect to the financial rules, it also will have to lay in the report. In case it is not laying this particular parameter in the report, what it means is we will engross a negative financial impact, and this can cause a grave damage to the country's interests. So what this article ultimately says is that there are certain schemes and programs which can get complex. So the CAG may not be able to understand certain reports as well as the complexity. In such a particular position, if it lacks the expertise to conduct a particular performance audit, expertise can be sought from multiple organizations, credible organizations, and form an auditing team to look into that particular program as well as scheme. And what the CAG will also have to ensure is that there is a performance audit of this particular program scheme of the government, which will ensure that such a procurement activity is executed keeping in mind the economy, the efficiency, the effectiveness, ethics, as well as the equity. This article says CTBTO invites India to be an observer at the meetings. What is this all about? This is speaking about the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty Organization. What is the context? The Executive Secretary of the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty Organization, that is Lesina Serbo, has invited India to be an observer in the CTBT. So let's understand some of the key important facts with respect to the CTBT. So this CTBT, or the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, is one of those important treaties which bans all nuclear activity, nuclear testing, as well as explosion for both civilian as well as the military purpose in all environments. So countries here will not be able to test their nuclear missiles or engross the nuclear explosion in all environments, whether it is in atmosphere or it is in underground, whether it is in water or whatever it is, they will not be able to conduct any testing or explosion in all environment. Another key important point is India is not a signatory to this particular treaty. Why has India not signed this treaty? What are the objections of India with respect to the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty? India believes that this divides the world into nuclear haves and nuclear have-nots. There are countries like United States of America, Russia, China. These are the countries which already have the nuclear weapons. Then there are other set of countries which do not have the nuclear weapons. So this comprehensive test ban treaty does not identify this, and it divides the world into haves and have-nots. Why India feels this discriminatory? That is because nuclear weapon states have already acquired enough sophistication even before signing this particular treaty, and as a result this is discriminatory against India. So all these countries which are ready to sign this particular deal already have enough sophistication. So in case of a security threat, they would be able to bomb another country using their nuclear missiles. But there are other countries which cannot use these nuclear missiles, and this is a major threat for India, and this is a discriminatory practice. And that is why India says the world has already been divided into haves and have-nots, and this particular policy of the CTBT is discriminatory against India. Then there are countries which already have enough number of nuclear missiles. We as a country from India, we are ready to dismantle our nuclear system. But are those countries ready to dismantle it? No. There is no time frame also given under this particular treaty. Even if we are ready to dismantle, destroy all our nuclear missiles, all those countries which already have, they are not ready to dismantle it. They are not ready to remove all their nuclear missiles. They are not ready to destroy. So the point here is there is no time frame that is mentioned to dismantle the existing nuclear weapons that is already prevalent in those countries. So India is objecting this particular point. Why should we destroy while all those countries which already have retained their particular nuclear missiles? India is also worried about its own security. We have our two neighbors. One is China, the other one is Pakistan. Pakistan operates its own plutonium production reactors. Pakistan also has the capability to produce about 20 nuclear warheads every year, while India is producing about 5 to 10 nuclear warheads. What it means is that India has a grave security threat from Pakistan. On the other side, we have the superpower China, which also has a dominating and hegemonic relationship with India. It also demands and commands things to India at certain things. How do we stand up to China? That is through a deterrence of nuclear weapons. With all this in framework, we are not going to sign the CTBT because these two countries, in case they happen to dismantle, we are ready to do it. But unfortunately, because their nuclear proliferation is increasing with time, we cannot take a disadvantage by dismantling our system. So we as India need this as a deterrent against two enemy countries of Pakistan as well as China. Then CTBT also deals only with the horizontal proliferation and not vertical proliferation. What it means is that it is not looking at how these nuclear weapons are transferred from one region to another. How did all these nuclear weapons which started in North Korea went up into the hands of Pakistan? Did the CTBT look into it? No. It only looks at horizontal proliferation, but the point here is it is not looking into vertical proliferation where multiple countries are having arrangements and agreements to move one nuclear program to another country. This is not being focused by the CTBT. That is the prime reason why we are not supporting this particular program. That is why India has been obstructing this CTBT ever since it came up from 1996. Under the present context, the article also speaks about the international monitoring system. So what is this international monitoring system? This is a worldwide network. What does it do? It monitors all stations as well as countries. There are certain compliance rules which countries will have to follow. In case they violate this particular organization, that is international monitoring system, will look into it, detect events that might indicate the violations of the treaty. So this system has about 337 facilities, which includes 321 monitoring stations as well as 16 radionuclide labs. And what they basically do is the system would be able to detect even small nuclear explosion. How? Because of the technology like the seismology, hydroacoustics, infrasound as well as the radionuclide technology. So currently what this article says is the executive secretary, that is Lesina Sarbo, has requested India to come and join this IMS as an observer. That is, it wants India to be a part of this organization as an observer status. Why? Because Pakistan is already got this observer status. So if India comes up to this particular forum, it will have the advantage of seeing what's happening in this particular forum, see what China is speaking up to, what is the role of Pakistan and what is the role of United States of America, and it will be able to prepare itself further. So what this article has suggested is that India does not have the observer status currently, so it is requesting India to come over and join as the observer status. This article here says China hitchback imposes tariff hike on US goods worth about 60 billion. So this is one of the major trade wars that is happening between United States of America as well as the China. Initially, when it started off, this was a means of protectionism. With the call of America first, President Donald Trump started increasing tariffs against China, Japan, European, Indian as well as multiple other countries on steel as well as aluminium. So from then till now, this protectionism as a tool by United States has been creating this trade war, and there is a constant tussle between these two countries. What this issue is, what are the paradigms of this, what are the major impact for India and the world has already been explained on our YouTube video, so kindly look into it for the same. However, what this article currently says is that US has imposed and raised the tariffs for worth about 200 billion, for which China is also reciprocating back by having a tariffs of for about 60 billion target list. So let's look into some of the practice questions. Eureka program is aimed at imparting basic knowledge on the space technology. Why have we taken this up? Because there is an article in newspaper today which says ISRO hosts first batch of teen scientists. So what is this program? It is a program by the Indian Space Research Organization that has been launched as a special program for school children called as Young Scientist Program. The program is primarily aimed at imparting basic knowledge on space technology, space science and space applications to the younger ones with the intent of arousing their interest in the emerging areas of space activities. The selection is based on the academic performance and extracurricular activities. So on this particular basis, all those who have finished 9th standard will be stepping into 10th standard will be given the eligibility criteria and they'll be selected on this basis. Let's look into the next practice question. In an ecosystem, a flowering plant is being consumed by a caterpillar, which in turn is eaten by a frog. The frog is preyed upon by a snake, which in turn is consumed by a higher predator, such as eagle. What type of food chain does this feeding pattern represent? The answer for this is grazing food pattern. Let's look into the explanation. In a grazing food chain, the first level starts with plant as the producers, ends with the carnivorous as consumers at the last level, with the herbivorous being at the intermediate level. Let's look into the next practice question. While moving along topic of cancer, which of the following states is not encountered? The answer for this is Odisha. So these are the states where Tropic of Cancer passes through. You have Gujarat, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, West Bengal, Tripura as well as Mizoram. So kindly remember the state names. This can be likely asked in your preliminary examination. Let's look into the next question. Consider the following: right to education, right to equal access of public service, right to food. Which of the above is human right? Human rights under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The answer for this is 1, 2 and 3, because all this are part of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.